Appreciated.
Well, as cybersecurity attacks become more common, the Tennessee Valley Authority working nonstop to make sure no threats come to its customers. Reporter Shannon Smith spoke with the company's new cybersecurity director about what they do to protect our power. Shannon?
Brandon, TVA is a big target for cybersecurity attacks. It's a federal agency with a valuable resource reaching over 10 million people. One strike could compromise everyone's power. So now they're taking extra precaution and hope that you will too.
We're making sure that we keep those lights on.
That's TVA's goal no matter what. But the growing threat of cyber attacks has the power company working now more than ever to protect itself.
We've definitely seen an increase of cyber attacks over the last decade, but especially in the last few years.
TVA's Director of Cybersecurity, Andrea Brackett, says the company has ramped up its cybersecurity efforts. A team of cyber analysts monitors international data 24/7 at their state-of-the-art cybersecurity facility in Chattanooga.
They're looking for traffic that's going across our network to see if there's indicators that something that shouldn't be there is there.
If the analysts see something suspicious anywhere across the globe, they can work to stop it before it gets to them.
They're looking for attempts to come in through our network, but they're also looking to see if the activity on the network's unexpected.
Brackett says TVA takes cybersecurity seriously because just one attack can affect millions of people in the Tennessee Valley.
Were we to have an attack, it would be our ability to provide power to that local power company.
A cyber attack can range from a complicated software breach to something as simple as clicking a compromised link in an email. TVA trains its employees to spot anything suspicious that could lead to a data breach.
This is an area that's not slowing down. The attacks are definitely increasing, and we want to make sure that everyone is aware of the importance of cybersecurity.
And Brackett says there are safety measures that all TVA employees take that could protect anyone from a cyber attack, like use your passwords on electronic devices and always update your security software. Brandon, Beth.
All right, Shannon, thank you very much.